Now, I would like to share with you some of the common weaknesses of journal papers, regardless of whether they are submitted as assignments or whether they're actually sent to journals. First of all, it is the sections of the paper. Each section has its own purpose, and the information must follow the sections of the paper. Now, why do I emphasize this? Isn't this just so obvious? Well, no. One example is the results and discussion. A lot of authors cannot tell the difference. When they write the discussion, it is a summary of the results all over again, and it never moves into a real discussion. So that is one of it. And the method, there are many components of the method. And when authors describe them, they are mixed up. It's as if, yeah, it's like the Malaysian rojak. Okay, later I will go into the details. So yes, the sections of the paper are well understood, but complying and putting the correct content in is very important. Otherwise, we immediately show the reviewer that we are amateur in starting out. It just gives away immediately because good researchers do not mix things up. Things are very clear. It's like your house. You have this place for A, that place for B, and the things are very systematic. It must be like that in the paper. Number one, front matter. I focus first on the title. The title must show the variables and the people studied. It cannot be something general like a book title, but it cannot be so specific that it announces the course name plus the course code. I think you understand why it cannot be general like book title, but the specific information, why should it not be there? Well, we are talking about sharing the information with other people in the world in this field. We have to see that they may teach courses that do not carry this name. So we have to just know what the course is about. For example, environmental engineering. I think that is enough. It doesn't matter what your university actually finally call the course. I think we need to be a bit of a broader, having a broader mind on this so that the title is applicable to other people. Otherwise, our paper also never gets cited because it is not picked up by others in the search. Next one, name and affiliation should be complete. Now, Chinese names in Malaysia pose a problem in publication. Malay names, Indian names, Iban, Bedayu, no problem. Chinese name pose a problem like mine, Su-Hie. When I published, when I went to Australia for my PhD, I have been writing my name as Su-Hie Ting whenever I publish, and it is good because people then will cite me as Ting. Otherwise, when I was doing my master's in UPM, I didn't know, so I just put my name in that way, Su-Hie. So I have been cited as he. Oh, I mean, too bad. I didn't know. I was katak di bawah tempurung at that time. So now we are more international and global, so we know. So you get your name correct. Okay, some, I just use the Chinese name as an example. Some have English names, like my student, Jacinta Yo Jing-Yi. So because she was my undergraduate student and master's, she did with me. So when I got her to write papers, I told her, I think you don't need to include Jacinta. You just go with Jing-Yi, Yo, and you stay like this all the time. So she obeyed. It helps with the citation. Last time, the system is so rigid. If sometimes you are Jacinta Yo Jing-Yi, sometimes you are Jacinta J.Y. Yo. Oh, some of it will be counted, some not counted as yours. So to be consistent is very important. You decide what is your glamour name and you stick to it. Keywords. Normally, these are variables that appear in the title and the people study or the text study or your subject, if you are doing the sciences, your samples do not include unrelated keywords or small things that are not important. Abstract. Oh, I have seen terrible abstracts. As reviewer, as chief editor, well, as lecturer marking students' assignments in the research method course and in the final year project. Terrible abstract, why? It is the very first piece that appears in a thesis, so they write it like general introduction. They write it like the school essay, introducing the topic. No. The abstract is written last of all, after we've written the conclusion and we know exactly what the results are. Then we write the abstract. And it has a very clear purpose. It must have three things: the aim and objectives of the study, the method, and the results. I would say the result must take out half of the abstract. For me, I start with the aim of the study. For me, I don't put the research problem into the abstract until the reviewers ask me to do it or the editor asks me to do it. Then I will do it. It is not easy to write the gap of the study in 2-3 sentences and be very effective in it. This is a journal paper. It is not a grant. In the grant executive summary, yes, you need to give the research gap in 2 or 3 sentences, and it is no playing with words. It is compact like anything, because the research problem, the introduction section of the journal paper, usually takes 4 paragraphs to write because it brings in all that we know about the field. But you want to write in 2-3 sentences, it is very hard. So when I can avoid it like the abstract, I avoid it. Well, it doesn't cause my paper to be rejected. It's not something that is so crucial. Next, this introduction with no gap, number 2. This is a very big weakness of a lot of papers. I do content screening for journals of other universities. And I have seen a lot of introduction that are like school essay introductions, more or less, I mean, with some citation, but still stuck on the general information. This kind of general introduction like essay has no value because it doesn't show the knowledge in the field right now about that research problem, about that topic. It must show the findings that we already know. Only when we can talk about what we already know, then we can talk about what we don't know, and requires more study. There is a certain kind of shortcut that some authors use. They say that A has studied this topic, B also has studied this in this other country, C also studied this. Well, in the end, it's ABC has done the study, but what did they find out? Do you know what they have found out? You don't know. You don't know means you didn't read the paper. So you don't know what is the existing knowledge in the field. If you don't know what is out there, how do you know that there is more need to study? Okay, let's talk about roti canai. You know, somebody gave an analogy using this. You want to make better roti canai, you must eat what the shop A, B, C, D, E, F, G sells. Then you know where the what is good about their roti canai in the 7 shops and what is not so good. And you identify what is not so good. So when you make your roti canai, you will make sure that you have all the strong points of the 7 shops, plus you overcome the weakness of theirs. Now, that is what an introduction should do. It should lead to this point before you announce, hey, this is what I'm going to study. Now, in journal papers, maybe in some theses, I see this tendency to bring in, oh, my study will look into this. No, in the introduction, this is not the place for you to announce your study. You direct the reader to say that we are getting there, but you are not supposed to announce your study. Your study is only announced at the aim and objectives of the study. After this, outside of this introduction section, in the very last part where the story has finished, then you say, hey, this is what I'm going to study. I have already told you just now why this thing need to be studied, but I did not say I was going to do it. Introduction is like this. So I give you this introduction. This is based on my research on lifelong learning in 2014, 2015, was given a top-down grant by KPM at that time, was done with engineering lecturers. I make it into a story like this, okay? Once upon a time, people study to get a job. Once they get a job, they continue working until they retire. Things have changed. Now people study again after they start working. You would think that only those who have lower qualifications continue studying to get a higher pay or to change jobs. But degree holders also take extra courses. Some are related to their jobs, but others are just out of interest. So what makes them spend money and time to study again? Now, that is the research question. And even though I make it as a story, you know that if we are going to write this as an introduction, there needs to be citation for all of them. And the part where I outline what we already know about the topic is, those who have low qualifications, they continue studying. Citation to support this, not just my opinion. And why do they continue? To get higher pay. Citation to support this. To change jobs. Yes, citation to support this. Degree holders also study again. Yes, more citations to support this. And why they do it? Maybe they want to get promoted because they got better skills. Citation again. Others out of interest because they want to make friends for networking. They want to learn other skills for self-development. Also citations. So you see that this one is telling us what we already know. And then we raise the question, why people who are highly educated already still want to spend time and money to study again? So my study aims to find out why people pursue lifelong learning in Malaysia. Is it for professional development or is it for self-development? You know, so yeah, maybe, yeah, I had 2 research questions like that. I actually have more than that, but I think what I want to illustrate to you is how you write your introduction, the storyline. Okay, there are many terms that are used for this introduction. I just use introduction, but it means the research problem. There is no need to be so redundant. You have introduction, you have background again, and you have statement of the problem. Then the things written in the 3 are like continuing and yet not continuing, you know, repeating themselves. No, you just see the introduction as a place for us to use the past findings to show the research problem and what the gap is. Finish the story, 1 section, do a good job there and tell a good story. Do not do many sections. Third weakness with journal papers, unclear aiming objectives. What is the difference between the 2? Well, aim is the broader one that encompasses the objectives. Number 1, aim should be broad enough then to cover, and you must write in 1 sentence. If you are going to write many sentences, I think you are running into the objectives, the breakdown of it. The aim of the study is a bit like the title of your study. Unless it's like the social sciences, they make very interesting titles, or in literature, you make interesting titles, then it will not copy the title. Otherwise, I think in the sciences, and also when I write, the aim of the study is like the title, because the title must show the aim. So it shows the variable studied, the people or text or other things you study. Of course, it is a study, so don't need to waste words to say it is a study or an investigation of something is understood. And the words used in the aim is very informative. If I see something like this, effect of A and B on C's use of D, immediately I know it's an experimental study because of the word effect. Only experiments can study effect, because they control all the extraneous variables. If I am not doing experiment, I cannot use the word effect. I use the word influence. So you can study influence using questionnaire, influence of A on B. You will see that quite a few of my papers uses influence. Now we move to objectives. Objectives should show the variables studied very clearly. Example, English proficiency. It cannot be so vague already. A good objective, when I look at it, I can kind of imagine your data tables. Even I don't know what you're going to put into the table, but I can imagine the heading of the table. That is how clear a good objective is. Or if you are not doing studies that collect quantitative data, when I see your objective, I can imagine maybe concept maps or the kind of excerpts that you are going to include to support your results. That is how clear objectives are, because they point to your data. So this is the clarity I mean when we talk about aiming objectives. Number 4, weakness is the method. Now, method for me has 5 types of information. First one is the research design. You may want to announce that yours is a descriptive, correlational, or experimental study. Descriptive, you study one variable. You may use different ways to collect the data. Let's say social media usage for venting frustration, okay? Social media usage for venting frustration. I can do a descriptive study to find out this phenomenon. I can collect questionnaire data. I can collect interview data. Doesn't matter. It is still just descriptive study because I only want to see how people vent frustration in social media. Correlational, you must relate two variables. Experimental, you must do an intervention. Some people don't measure before, they only measure the after. Of course, it's not a great design that way, but if you can control things, then your results are more reliable, more valid. That is number 1 part of the method. You don't put a statement, you just say this study involves what. I think it's also okay if you just go straight into it. Okay, number 2, participant description. Or if you are analyzing a student's assignment and the final exam, you can say text description because those are the texts you analyze. But there is no harm for you also to put participant description because your students may be year 2 of a certain kind of program and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's still okay. And your assignments also come from people. How many of them? What are those assignments? Where? When? And because in the arts, we talk about selection criteria. Why do you choose these students? You know, who qualifies to be the participant in your study? Selection criteria is very important. So you can say people taking academic writing course. Yeah, that's fine. And they are university students. So you cannot include school students. They can be from different disciplines. So that means you can get students from all over campus, whoever is taking your course. So you need to have certain selection criteria. So only those in academic writing. If you are taking English for professional communication, then you're not supposed to include them because you only said that they must be students of academic writing. So that is one example of selection criteria. There is a boundary to your source of data, otherwise it never ends. Now, a lot of people are more concerned with the number. Is my class of 30 students enough? It's okay if you're doing a descriptive study, but you then will have some problems when you generalize because people say, you study 30 and you want to say that the 3,000 students or the 30,000 students in the country is like this. Therefore, you must write your limitations that you cannot generalize because what you study could be so uniquely like this. What is an acceptable sample size? When I did the calculation using the sample size calculator, I found that a population of 10,000, even 100,000, we only need to sample 384 respondents. If we set the confidence level at 95% or 5% error tolerance. This was what I got a few years ago. Recently, I found the number dropped. It's 370 something already. Okay, maybe certain calculations out there changes. But for me, I will get 400 at least, because there might be some I have to throw away. So I will get 400. Random sampling. This word has been misused too much. Random sampling in research is very systematic. It is not anyhow or simply, but it is often used with the meaning of anyhow and simply. If you're doing anyhow or simply kind of sampling, I would suggest you use the word purposive sampling. It sounds better than convenient sampling. It means that you select people who fulfill your selection criteria. It could be people just around you, but still they fulfill your selection criteria. You purposely select them because they meet what you have set down is the selection criteria. Random sampling is like this. You actually know the full number of your participants, let's say all the students in academic writing, not necessarily just your course, all of them. It could be 500, and you can number them 1 to 500, and you want to just study 100 of them. You can take 500 divided by 100. Okay, you can take number 5, number 10, number 15, number 20, and so on, and you will get your 100. Or you use cast lots. Truly, this is by chance. That means everybody has a fair chance of being included as a participant in your study. Last time, we also use a table of random numbers. You use a pencil, you close your eyes, you just point, and then you get the last 2 digits. That is the number of the student in your list of 100. So random sampling means to equalize chance so that everybody has a chance of being selected. It means that your representativeness is there. But a lot of us are not able to do random sampling. So do not simply use the word unless you really do it. Okay, I have explained what I have shown you here, what I'm showing you here. Okay, now, since you are lecturers, I will expose you to more types of probability sampling. That means everyone in the population has a chance of being selected. There is a simple random sampling that I talked about just now. Then there is also the stratified sampling, which I have also used because I wanted to have equal number of subgroups, for example, equal number of male and female, or equal number of age groups, depending on what concerns you. And then number 3 is cluster sampling. Sometimes it's not possible to list out all the members of the population, but you are able to list the clusters, the grouping. So you then pick the cluster randomly, and for that cluster, everybody inside got to be studied. Number 4, systematic sampling. I already talked about just now. Every K student. Next is the non-probability sampling, not so good. And we use it because we are not able to list all the members of the population. We have the terms accidental sampling. Oh, please don't use this term. Use purposive sampling. The researcher judges the sample to be typical or representative of the population. Yes, our judgment may be wrong, but we say we follow the selection criteria. We have quota sampling. We select using our judgment, the typical cases. Okay, I think you are a typical social media user. You come and fill in my questionnaire. You also, okay, you fill my questionnaire. So this is also based on judgment. In the end, maybe they are not really representative. Maybe in the end, we select them because they are very approachable and agreeable. So all the non-probability sampling has its weakness. But I have not had papers rejected just because I say I use purposive sampling. It's okay. And I give the selection criteria. It's acceptable. Sometimes it is queried, then I just improve my write-up there. It doesn't get rejected because of this. The third part of the weakness in writing the method section is to do with the instrument. Authors usually have no problem to say they got 30 items using 5-point Likert scale. But then they don't say what the 30 items are about. There should be mention of what the items are about. You don't have to mention section A is about what, section B is about what. The name of the sections, section A, B, C does not need to be included, but what the sections are need to be included. For example, I want to find out information. No, the questionnaire is on behaviors in the use of phone in class, attitudes towards the use of phone in class. At least I name the content of the questionnaire. And if I have borrowed the items from somebody else, I would then say it is adapted from so and so. Please don't use the term adapted and adopted. Actually, the two words are mutually exclusive. It is a wrong use. When you say adopted, it means 100% the same. The moment you change something, it is adapted. So it is either 100% the same or 99% the same. If 100% the same, it is adopted. If 99% or 9% the same, then it is adapted. There is no such thing as adopt and adapt. This is wrong use of English. Please don't. If you make it your own, it's fine. I have seen the term people say self-constructed. Yeah, it's logical. Method has the data collection techniques. This is the fourth component of the research method information in the journal paper. In a lot of cases, there is little transparency in the steps of data collection. Of course, I don't need to know, readers don't need to know whether where you stand to distribute the questionnaire, but we do need to know whether you are using online or printed forms of questionnaire. We also need to know how soon the questionnaires come back to us and whether you send reminders to them. And if you do, how do you send the reminders? How many times do you remind and so on? We need to know because this is about reliability. If somebody repeats your study in future, they need to do the same thing as you to get the kind of people. If you collect the data while standing in shopping mall, you are collecting certain kind of data from certain kind of people. If you collect the data while standing in the, let's say, airport, you are collecting data from another group of people. So where you collect the data, for example, is very important. Where you do your sampling. And the problem is some of the time, the information is mixed up. I'll come back to that later. I think I just go to number 5, data analysis techniques also lack details. I don't need to know all the details of how you do your calculation of your regression and so on. You need to mention the regression and what variables are you trying to put together. For qualitative data, it's very important you say what analysis framework you are going to use. If not, then you analyze anyhow. You analyze text 1 like this. By the time you reach text 10, you analyze in a different way. That would be reliability problem. For example, something general for data analysis, the answer scripts will analyze to identify the kinds of information present. How will they analyze? What kind of information are you looking for? There must be certain statements. And for a good paper, using qualitative data, there should be a way to prove that you really did the analysis. And this is the way we do it. This is how I read in the books when I was doing my PhD. And so therefore, I learned to put it into my PhD thesis and subsequently into my journal papers. We talk about areas of subjectivity. First, I thought A and B are different. Then later, I realized A and B should be merged into one category. And actually, I give the exact examples. Here, I just talk about A and B is enough for our purposes because you and I come from so many different disciplines. So when we give evidence of how we resolve subjective areas in analysis, that is actually very important proof of the proper procedures were followed and the analysis was systematic. Yeah, if we make our own analysis framework to guide our analysis, it is okay to talk about this. At first, I used this definition for A, but later I realized that I got to change it a bit to expand to include this, so that I got A1, A2 inside there. This is very important for reliability, for future researchers to replicate the study in the same way. The method connect to the results. You cannot say, I have results. Why you need to know all about my method? Yes, how you cook the roti canai affects how it tastes in the end. So the method is very important. It's not just the outcome. The outcome comes from the method. Therefore, this is very important. That's why sidetracking again to the grant application, the method must be detailed because the reviewers want to see that you have spent time to plan the study. It's not just I get the money and I think of how I'm going to do it. No, it has to be planned down to the detail. And for grant applications, the method must connect to the budget. If here you say you want 400 respondents, and then in the budget you suddenly say that you want to pay the 1,000 respondents, oh, something is very wrong already. Here 400, there must be 400, the money for 400. You know, it connects directly to the budget. Okay. The method, the last part, the problem with the method is mix up all the information, cannot tell the difference. The information on participants somehow appear in the instrument. Instrument information appear in the data collection. Everything mixed up like rojak. Rojak is delicious, but not for the method section. It just shows how amateur we are when we write like this. Okay, now I move to weakness number 5, dealing with the results. I show you an example here like this. As shown in table 11, item B, mean standard deviation shows that the participants do not eat pineapple as often as they eat the fruit about once in 2 to 3 months. Item B2, mean standard deviation shows that the participants in this study eat a moderate portion of pineapples, which is 1 long slice of pineapple. Item B3, so it goes on. This is what I call mechanical reporting. This is written by someone who doesn't understand the results. Don't see anything, just keep reporting from the table, B1, B2, B3, and continue. Mechanical reporting is not good. The opposite scenario is the tip of the iceberg. The very general results that is like only tip of the iceberg. There's so much detail down there that are not described. That is also no good. There should be overall understanding of what the results mean. So when we look at it, then we say, okay, this is the story I want to tell because I see this from the numbers, I see this from the interviews. This is the story I want to tell. So when you have the storyline in your head, then you can write more meaningfully. The results don't change. It's how you write it so that it has meaning. And of course, our results are based on the objectives. If there are 3 objectives, you have 3 sections for the results. And you will use the keywords from the objectives for the headings. I have seen people copy the objective and put it as result section 1. Copy again and result section 2 is exactly the same wording as the objective. No, that's not the way. It is to use the keywords inside there. And we always support using table or figures, and therefore we must refer to them and say, see figure 1, see table 2, and do the correct figure headings and correct numbers. All these are very important because eventually it shows how meticulous we are as a researcher. If everything is messed up, we also suspect that you probably also simply collect the data and simply analyze the data. It all goes together. Number 6, pretend discussion. Okay, before I go there, I want to explain the picture of the burger first. This is something I just discovered a month or 2 ago, this analogy that I discovered. A lot of people write pretend discussion like the second burger. A little bit, one line citation, one line only. We don't know what the full paper is about or what the results is about, but just one thing only. My study has results that are similar to B. Finish. In a way, that is not the way. A good discussion should look like the first burger. You have all the layers. You have your results, which is like the bun, but you also have the pickled cucumber. You have the salad. Then you have the beef patty. You have the cheese. You have the beef patty. Again, you have the cheese. A good discussion should look like the first burger. Okay. The pretend one is like the second one, the cheap burger that only gives you a little bit of cheese only and a lot of barbecue sauce. So either there is no discussion or there is only pretend discussion, one-liner citations. But later, say bye-bye. I don't care what you actually found out. I just want to show that I did some citation. We need to use that citation to compare with our own results or to explain our results. It is not just saying, hey, my results are similar to A, B, and C, but it's different from the studies done by D, E, and F. This is not enough. Why are our results similar to the studies done by A, B, and C? We need to look into their context. Did they study the same kind of students as we did? Did they use the same kind of instruments? Because to me, the people and the instrument will affect the results. And if we are doing qualitative analysis, then the analysis approach will also affect the results. So all these need to be considered before we can say, hey, it's so great that my findings are similar to A, B, and C. Okay. So when we mention, this is my finding, blah, blah, blah. A also found this finding. A's students are also university students taking a certain type of course. In my study, I use questionnaire XYZ. They didn't use XYZ, but I saw elements of X and Y inside there, so they measured somewhat the same variable. And we obtained similar results on this thing. It shows that this kind of students, under certain circumstances, will always produce this. So you need to have that discussion. That's why you need to have layers. And then you now go to B, but in a different context, you know, not using uni students, but school students. B found this, you know. So you have these layers inside. Then it goes back to your own, and it goes to other people. And if you're good enough, you can even go to the theory. That is how you add knowledge to the field. And if you have two sets of data, questionnaire and interview, you must bring them together and say, hey, are they bringing up the same results or not? You know, interviews can get more insightful results because people are not constrained by the questionnaire items. They can tell from their own experiences in life, and therefore you get certain kind of different findings. But in the end, if we put them together, are we getting the similar results? Actually, for my master's student who did this for her LGBT study, questionnaire and interview give similar results. So the implication of the finding is this. That means for LGBT research, it is possible to use questionnaires so that we can study a bigger group. But in my own study on ethnic identity and school choice, and also those in the UK that I have read, The questionnaire and the interview will give different results. The interview will have more honesty of results. The questionnaire, they will say, no, we're not choosing the school because I see more of my own kind of people there, more whites or more blacks and so on. But in the questionnaire, they say, no, it's not this. But in the interview, they will tell you yes. So it depends on different topics. So if you happen to have two kinds of data, you need to bring them together and compare. And you will then understand the field. When you say, oh, mine is similar to A, I need to find out whether they're using questionnaire or interview because this is going to affect the results. Okay, conclusion. Weakness number 7. Lots of, either these are two extreme, lots of missing information or drawing conclusions beyond what is shown by the results. Oh, some people write so freely, oh, my study will produce this can be used like that. That is far beyond what the little things that are shown by the results. I am giving you the formula for a good conclusion, which I discovered in the year 2007 when I was exposed to a talk on this, that a journal paper has its structure inside there, and the whole group of researchers out there, big names, they're actually studying this. So I went to read the papers. Oh, last time I had to put another paper there and try to compare and try to write like this. Then I saw the formula. So I'm sharing this with you. Number 1, give a summary of the key results. Number 2, talk about the great contribution of your study. And you must remember your research gap that is in the introduction section. Don't talk about something else. Then the two cannot tie back together. Your significance or your great contribution must tie back to the research gap. Because at the beginning, you said this thing is not well understood. So now you have found this thing, so you can fill in a little bit of the gap. So it must tie back to the introduction. Number 3, you can talk about applications of the findings in a broader context, go more practical applications. Number 4, limitations. You will notice that I didn't talk about limitations with the method because this is the structure of a journal paper. It actually appears in the conclusion. It's like, my result is so great, but yeah, I acknowledge I've got some weaknesses here. The storyline actually flows. And finally, so yes, I got these weaknesses. So you other researchers out there, you go and do another study and make sure you don't have this weakness. This is something else you could consider for your future research. So it ends beautifully, ties together.